Yes, well, I was just painfully aware of something that was drastically wrong. Sometimes you think things aren't wrong, but they're not too bad. But I knew there was just something just not right. I guess my brain was going a bit funny, being starved of oxygen, but just had a sensation something's wrong. You've got to get out of here, and you've got to get out of here now. I dropped my tools and said, I'm getting out of here. Started climbing out of the hole in the fuel tank, the access panel, and I actually remember starting to climb down the stairs, but then it just went totally black, just split instantly. I had no warning that I was going to pass out. It just happened, just like that.
Charlie, second please. Charlie.
As the long night hours of November the 18th drew to a close, just about everyone working in Hangar 1 was glad to see the end of it. It had been a particularly arduous night, where anything that could have gone wrong went wrong. By 6 a.m, the night shift was tired and eager for the next crew to take over. Maybe things would run better for them. Of course, what they didn't realise was that things were about to get much worse. In a few hours' time, an incident would take place that would nearly claim the life of a young, highly skilled aircraft maintenance engineer, Paul Penrice. It would be an accident that could easily have happened to any one of Ansett's 1,500 maintenance crew working around the country. There was nothing unique or extraordinary about this incident. It was simply an error of judgment that didn't recognise the deadly potential of confined space entry. And it's a deadly error that neither you nor Ansett can afford to let happen again. Ansett aircraft maintenance engineers are among the world's most highly trained and skilled aviation professionals. They are required to service and maintain an extensive fleet of aircraft, ranging from the smallest Fokker F-28 jets up to the largest Boeing 747s. All this adds up to an enormous maintenance program that monitors hundreds of thousands of mechanical parts, flight systems and avionics to ensure the airworthiness of each and every aircraft every day. Coping with the stresses of the daily workload and complex technology is one thing, but coping with stress overload is quite another. That's when things begin to unravel, as they did on that day in November. Some of the crew explain.
I think the numbers were down too on the day. It was manpower was a constant problem that you have, especially that time of the day. You're just starting off, and when something like this happens, it's completely out of the blue, and you think, oh no, this is the last thing we needed. So the whole game plan, Dave and Dave Shaw's got to basically go back to the drawing board and say, well, okay, let's now look at the scenario with an aeroplane down, with 3 guys out of the picture. What have we got now? So the whole thing's going to be redone. So yeah, it is a major problem.
Well, we have an option where we can look at the board and say, do we need people in on overtime to cover it? Or, as in this particular case, I spoke to David Peck, and we decided we could afford to take 3 off the tarmac and run it at an absolute minimum. The pressures of doing that we were very aware of at the time, but it's not something new that we do it quite frequently. But our day shift manpower levels aren't geared for large jobs. The scenario was that the defect was just unfolding as I walked in through the door, so I certainly knew FKI had a fuel problem. The first I heard about it, I guess, was David calling on the radio, and we had to make a decision whether it was AOG, which is of course aircraft on ground, or there was something we could do with it down the tarmac. Really, with that sort of defect, there's no question to it. We made the decision that yes, the aircraft was on ground. We didn't have a spare aircraft, so we were committed to carry out maintenance to make that aircraft serviceable.
It was the discovery of leaking fuel that started the chain of events that day. David Peck, the senior engineer, radioed back to the hangar and advised them that FKI was AOG to have a fuel vent problem rectified.
Tarmac engineer to shift controller.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Dave, look, I've got a fuel vent problem on FKI. Got a fuel spill here of about 40 litres.
Where's it coming from?
Left-hand vent valve?
Confirmed float vent valve, not sniffle valve.
Yes, it's the float vent valve.
Okay, I'll let ops know it's AOG.
Righto, Dave, look, what hanger do you want her in?
Take it hanger number 1.
Okay, will do.
The operation was under enough pressure that day. They didn't need another urgent repair. They already had 9 aircraft listed for departure in the next 90 minutes, another 2 standing by at International, and no spare aircraft to replace the faulty FKI. The stress was clearly affecting everyone. While the aircraft was being transported back to the hangar, David Peck arranged for Barry Collins to drop what he was doing and stand by to work on the problem. At around 0800 hours, FKI was earthed and finally secured. David Peck then went to the supply room, obtained the confined space entry equipment, and on his way back requested Gary O'Toole to assist Barry Collins.
Yeah, sure.
The increasing terminal traffic was forcing David Peck to leave Hangar 1. So at 0900 hours, David decided to appoint Paul Penrice in charge of the repair team and return to tarmac duties.
Get on it, fix it. We're Baz over here.
How's it going?
Nothing yet. We've checked the outboard vent valves and they seem fine. All I can think of is that maybe an inboard valve is jammed or something.
You know, it could be a break in the vent tubing somewhere inside the wing.
Yeah, you could be right. I think we should pressure test the entire system with air.
No, let's give it a shot.
Well, whatever we're doing, let's do it fast. We've got a heap of stuff to get through today.
Look, I don't care what's waiting. I can tell you, it's going to take a bit of time to track this one.
Yeah, righto. All right, Gary, if you do this panel, I'll do the lower one down here.
Yeah, no worries.
It's the truth, I hate these things. They're pigs to get off when their heads are damaged.
You all right?
Yeah, she's all right. Buckets of room as usual.
Yeah.
Jeez, I can't say a thing. Hey, maybe if we try changing the 2 float valves, that might do the trick.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, Barry, I tell you what if I go in and change this one while you fit that panel and we'll swap positions for the other valve when I'm done?
Okay, no worries.
Right, I'll grab the breathing gear.
Don't worry, Dave's done it, over there.
All right, good.
After organising his team, Paul suited up and entered the wing tank for the first time. Shortly into his inspection, Paul began to notice that his air supply seemed to be irregular. He then exits the wing and advises Barry Collins that he needs a fresh set of tanks. Barry selects a second bottle for Paul, not realising that this bottle too is not completely full. He then resumes his post and continues to work as Paul re-enters the wing for a second attempt at inspection. At this point, Barry misplaces his speed brace tip and decides to leave his post to obtain a new one from the store. He is gone for 5 to 8 minutes. While Barry is gone, Paul once again experiences poor air supply and exits the wing, frustrated at the lack of air once again. He notices Barry is gone and then proceeds to connect himself to what he thinks is shop air. It is in fact not shop air, but dry nitrogen.
Hey, Paul, how are you going?
Yeah, getting there. At this stage, it doesn't seem to be the outboard valve. I think we need to change the inboard one and see what happens.
Yeah, fine. We've got to get it finished, eh?
Yep, righto.
Yeah, a few more problems. Yeah, as soon as you're done, get us straight out on tarmac, will you?
Yeah, sure, mate.
Whoa, what the? You alright, Paul? Gary, get over here, quickly! Paul.
Mate, what happened?
I don't know, I looked over and he was flat on his face.
Mate, he's out of it. We've got to get some help.
All stations, we've got an emergency in hangar 1. All stations.
Oh, come on, buddy.
Yeah, this is operations, this is Dave Peck here. Yeah, we've got a man down, he's unconscious, he doesn't appear to be breathing, we need medical help immediately. Yeah, hangar 1. Yep, okay.
Barry! Something's wrong with Paul! Get Dave Shaw to get an ambulance down here now! Go, Barry, go! Mate, we got to do something. Paul's not breathing.
I'll start compressions.
All right, I'll do mouth to mouth.
Right.
Go!
1,
Paul Penrith is unconscious. Call an ambulance.
Paul?
Yes.
What happened?
I don't know, just call an ambulance now!
Okay, I'll call him now.
3. He's not responding. Come on, Paul, fight it. Come on, you're a clackline boy. Fight it, mate. Come on, fight it.
He's being sick. He won't get here. We've got to clear it.
It's all right, I'll get it.
You got it?
All right,
You've got to
Carney.
get his mouth
Jaw's
open.
locked.
Keep trying.
Oh,
We've got to
bring
get it clear.
Quick, roll him on his side. Come on, right, that's it.
There we go.
That's
He's
it.
vomited.
Oh, he's breathing. He's breathing.
Thank God. Thank God.
It was just like, it was such a surreal situation. Like, I'm an aircraft engineer. I come here and I fix airplanes. That's what I do. I don't, I'm not supposed to come here and, do this stuff. Dave's not supposed to come here. None of us are supposed to, we don't think we have to be called upon for that. And yet you're in that situation where you've got that happening. And
Called Gary as I was running and sort of ripped the face mask off. And he was the colour was sort of deathly, it was deathly white at Peabody. Yeah. I knew, there must have been something was wrong, but I couldn't think what it was to be because there was no sign of any injury. Probably don't think he was dead, but just disbelief. His jaw was locked and he was convulsing.
Yeah, we did the heart massage and we did the mouth to mouth, and then he was still very calm.
Yeah.
Nothing was happening. Then all of a sudden there was some response from Paul, and then we thought, oh, that's all right, So then all of a sudden convulsing started and like this, and we're thinking, oh, what the hell's happening now? It was like watching somebody inside their own body not being able to breathe and wanting to. You could see the expression was like, help me, do something. But and then once he actually had got the airway open, and then there was the eye response and all the, and we then I think felt massive relief.
As the paramedics attend to Paul, the full circumstances surrounding his collapse begin to surface. A fire services officer pulls David Peck aside to ascertain the facts surrounding the incident. David begins to explain that the last time he saw Paul fully conscious was when he entered the wing tank. The officer then asked to see Paul's breathing equipment. David directs him over to the breathing unit and hands him Paul's mask. He immediately recognized the potential for confusion and tries to ascertain shop air from nitrogen lines. The officer comments, "This is your problem." They then wade through the confusing mess of hoses on the workshop floor and eventually trace Paul's line back to the nitrogen cart. At this point, it is becoming clear that a number of safety procedures for confined space entry have not been followed. With this in mind, the officer then proceeds to question David further about other issues and asks David if his department adheres to the Australian standards for breathing apparatus and compressors. David's reply is,
I don't know.
what happened that day in Hangar 1 could have just as easily happened in any hangar around the country. The incident in no way reflects on the professionalism or competence of those involved. What it does demonstrate, however, is just how easily a tragic event can occur if proper safety procedures and good housekeeping practices become lax because of work pressures and poor vigilance. If the crew of Hangar 1 had strictly adhered to correct guidelines for confined space entry, then this whole incident would never have happened. Some of the major factors that contributed to this accident were the lack of regular maintenance for all breathing equipment, particularly in ensuring that the appropriate air levels were maintained, the incorrect use of emergency air bottles as the primary source of air instead of the regulation shop air lines, the absence of an entry permit certificate that authorizes an individual as a medically fit and competent person for confined space entry, the failure to implement the safety standby person procedure to monitor the entry progress, the failure to have adequately trained first aid personnel on site, the lack of appropriate housekeeping standards to clearly distinguish between shop air line connections and nitrogen line connections, the inadequate training of all relevant personnel in the equipment use and safety procedures associated with confined space entry. These were just a few very simple but significant safety issues that were overlooked on this day. Fortunately, the courageous and clear-thinking efforts of Paul's workmates helped avoid a potentially fatal event. Perhaps the person who can best appreciate this and sum up the hazards of confined space entry is Paul himself.
Yeah, something like this really brings home the dangers, which beforehand you think, oh yeah, there's a bit of risk here and whatnot, but something like that happens and then suddenly you're really painfully made aware that there are real dangers and there are real hazards. Yes, definitely changed my work habits for that particular task of confined space entry, and also in other tasks. I have friends outside of the company who are doctors. I've talked to them and they've told me the gravity of the situation, of just how close I was to death. And my family, I've got a lovely wife and 4 children, and that's so precious. And yeah, it's every now and then you have a few problems in life, whether it's work or home or whatever. And then you think back at the time when you nearly died, so close, and it's not mincing matters here. To be alive with my wife and family is just so precious. Definitely, I can remember even having a conversation with my grandfather on something different, and he said, "Look, Paul," he said, "you got to think twice before you act once," and it's pretty good words of wisdom. Even he's a retired farmer, and but it's good advice even for us in our industry. Even we're doing things all the time, to think twice before you act once.